Good morning. My name is Mike Rafferty, and I am the commercial sales manager for Unilock, Michigan, based here in Brighton. And also in attendance today is Jay Rentz, the commercial sales manager based out of Chicago, Unilock Aurora. Just as a very brief background, Unilock produces concrete paving stones and segmental retaining wall systems. We're proud to say that we introduced the concrete paving stone to North America in 1972 and introduced the permeable interlocking concrete paver in 1992. Since that time, we've had a strong commitment to the green build industry. Both Jay and I encourage you to stop by our booth at one of your breaks today to gain additional information on the permeable paving stone. Without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mayor Dixson of the city of Greensburg, Kansas. Bob Dixson took the office of mayor of Greensburg in May 2008. A native Kansan, Dixson has been a resident of Greensburg since 1985. He retired from the U.S. Postal Service after 26 years of service, was postmaster of Greensburg for 16 years, and Pratt postmaster for 6 years. Mayor Dixson has also served on various school and church boards. This morning, Mayor Dixson will detail his efforts to sustainably transform the city of Greensburg, Kansas, a town destroyed by an F5 tornado in May 2007. Since then, the town has resolved to rebuild the city using sustainable initiatives. These initiatives include reducing the city's carbon footprint through renewable energy and alternative means of transportation, recreating a vital downtown and emphasizing walkability, greening buildings through stricter codes, and providing economic and social equality for its citizens. Now, please help me in extending a warm welcome for Mayor Dixson.
We always want to be leery if somebody comes up with a big folder. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here today. I'm very humbled at the talent in this room. I want to thank Mayor Hartwell, A5, 7 generations ahead, and all of you personally of your commitment of taking a day out of your life that's so highly critical for all of us in our lives, of where we're headed and how we're taking care of our environment and the legacy that we're going to leave for future generations. In our process, it's easy to get pretty weary. And the last few days, I've been pretty weary. And coming up yesterday, I had great expectations. Great expectations of seeing acquaintances that I met a year ago back in Chicago at Greentown over in Aurora. Of being able to talk about things that are highly important to all of us. You had expectations this morning of seeing each other, of rekindling acquaintances, knowing we'd have coffee and juice and some great scones out there. On the night of May the 4th, 2007, it was a Friday, and our expectations that evening was just to have a relaxing end of the week work week and get ready for a great weekend. A nice spring weekend where we could work outside, get our gardens ready, clean up our flower beds, see the bulbs coming up. In a beautiful tree-lined community, I forgot, I got this. Could we dim the lights just a little, please? Thanks, John. In the middle of the prairies of central Kansas, we had a tremendous tree-lined community. And at 9:40 on the evening of May the 4th, our expectations for that weekend totally changed. And we all can, in the blink of an eye, I want you to know your expectations of where you're going to be in that blink of an eye can happen that fast. So we went from that to that in just a few minutes. It was an EF5 tornado, the largest on record at the time. It was 1.7 miles wide, took out 95% of the buildings in the community, leveled to rubble. So it mattered not your social economic status in the community, you lost everything. And you've heard this morning from all the people that have spoke already how important our relationships with each other are. Because that is the only true sustainable thing we have in life is our relationships with each other. And sustainability has to be right here first. You have to be sustainable physically, emotionally, spiritually, and financially before you can go out corporately and do anything sustainable. The storm had an eye in it just like a hurricane. And you can see on a map down at Greensburg right through it. That eye took about 2.5 minutes to move across. This was very slow moving. Enough about that. This, from my property, this is looking east across town. As you can see, it just looked like a bomb went off. We sorely missed the 11 people we lost, but we feel very blessed that it wasn't a couple hundred, and it could have easily have been. So in the midst of this, we were blessed with a tremendous opportunity to start over and rebuild a community that was built in the late 1800s and early 1900s. I throw a few slides in because people say, Bob, what's your personal story? Well, my personal story is simply this was the house of our dreams. We bought it back in the 90s, and I had done all the painting on it, and it was a big lily pond in the backyard. My wife and I are old farm kids, and living in a small town, this was going to be our little country place. That's what it looked like afterwards. We're very fortunate. We're in the basement, and you can see the house right up here. This was just that 2-story house stacked in rubble. Everybody in town was the same way. Now, this is the new house of our dreams. Highly energy efficient, very traditional looking. Taking advantage of a lot of things. And just the other night, I had a gentleman walk by, and we do a lot of walking in town now. He said, I have noticed all the new homes in town, a lot of them are putting front porches. We're getting back to our heritage where we sit out on front porches, and as neighbors come by, we visit. We have conversation. We don't tweeter. We don't text. We don't email. We have conversation. And that's what I encourage you to do today, is have conversations with each other. That's sustainability. Because you're in conversation, you face to face, eye to eye, share ideas and thoughts that are going to help us move boldly into the future and leave that legacy for future generations. This was just about a month after the storm, and you can see how quick we got the streets cleaned off. We just had volunteers and help from all over. But that is rural values. You don't wait on, quote, the government to get there, because remember, the government is us. I was joking with Corky last night, the best 3 years of my life were in the 5th grade. And I learned then, if I remember right, the government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And when we talk sustainability and we talk pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps, it's us. So we got started on it right away, almost to the point that FEMA and the state of Kansas and some, Red Cross, Salvation Army said, hey, slow down, you need to plan this. You need to think about what you're doing. So in the midst of thinking about what we're doing, we thought about what is sustainability. And we came up with this definition. It's simply meeting our needs at the current time, all of us' needs, but not compromising the needs of the future generations to meet their basic needs. Are we going to continue to be voracious consumers of goods and services? Or are we going to start looking at our consumption? We cannot keep on this planet producing more and more and more. We need to be good stewards of the resources that the Lord's blessed us with, and that's simply going green. And in the midst of that all, we think about what Paul said in 2 Corinthians to the Corinthians. He said, we are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not abandoned. Struck down, but not destroyed. In the midst of what all we went through all that. We were struck down. But we weren't destroyed because we were about faith, family, and friends. We were about those things, and everybody says, well, how do you prepare for a disaster, and how do you prepare for sustainability? Well, you do it right now. You do it here, and you do it here, and you develop those relationships through conversation. Again, that is the most sustainable thing we have in life. The other thing that was highly important, there was no place to meet in town, so FEMA brought us this beautiful circus tent. And we did everything in that circus tent. We had community church services. We had our planning sessions, county commission meetings, city council meetings. Everybody attended all those meetings. And when any two or more of us are gathered together, we eat. So we all got together and we dined and we fellowshiped together. And that really kept our community together. And people say, well, how can we replicate what you're doing in an existing community? It's evident right here in Grand Rapids of how you do it. Is you get the stakeholders together that want to make a difference. You identify an issue you want to deal with. And from the bottom up, you involve everyone in that process. It can't come from just Mayor Hartwell down. It's got to come from the bottom up. And that's why it was so critical for us to all meet together and decide where we wanted the community to go. So we involved all these stakeholders. We had meetings of all kinds. We had placards that our consulting firms would that helped us assist in the facilitation of the process said, okay, here's what we're hearing. So they draw us up some plans of how we wanted to see to look. Then they had sticky notes all over by these placards. And you just wrote on there what you thought of the plan. And some would say, hey, I like this part of it, I don't like this part of it. Some would say, this is a stupid idea. This is a great idea. They would take all those together and a week later come back with a new idea from the sticky notes. That whole process went on for a month and a half. And so everyone in the community that was committed to the community had an opportunity to say where we're going to head for the future. I know you're a little far away from this, but I just want to run down. These are things that we identified that meant to us sustainability, and it's about community. And there's a real longing in this society today, all over the world I'm finding out, of being a sense of community. And part of, again, of being a sense of community is that art of conversation. We all need each other to be together on this planet that fulfills us each one. We can't individually do anything. And always remember, great things can happen when there's total disregard of who's going to get credit, their name in the newspaper, or their face on TV. And we see that a lot in our society, and I'll just say this right up front. This transcends politics. This is not a right or a left issue. It's not an up or a down issue. This is about us. This is the right, prudent, and responsible thing to do for future generations, of taking care of our environment, of really being sustainable. And as we go down the list about family, about prosperity, you can see just what we wanted as a community. And one thing that you have in Michigan that we have in Kansas, this is going to be the big issue of the future, is water. We talk about fossil fuels and we talk about coal and all that. Our ancestors pioneered the Midwest. They found a way to cook. They found a way to heat their homes, even if they had to burn buffalo chips. But they always settled by a good source of water. We have to take care of that water, and why it's so critical is, if it wasn't critical, we would have life on Mars. But they don't have any water on Mars, so we don't have life. So this was kind of determined how we wanted the community to look. And I'd invite you to view our website of greensburgks.org. It has the Sustainable Master Plan on there. Please don't print it out unless you're very serious about it, because it takes quite a bit of paper. But peruse that at your convenience. Take a look at it. If you see something you like in it, use it. If you see something that you think needs modified, let me know. We have to do this together, all of us. One of the first things we wanted to get up after that mass destruction, after we cleaned up, we needed a water tower. And the water tower, we all know what those are for. We've got to have a drinking supply, but we also need to have fire protection. But quite frankly, this water tower was more than that. This water tower offered hope to the citizens and to the travelers up and down the highway. Yes, Greensburg is rebuilding. I had a gentleman make a comment to me. He said, I don't understand why a small community in the middle of nowhere would even think about rebuilding. And I said, well, sir, you got it all wrong. Number one is, it's our home. And number two is, we're in the middle of everywhere. And we really are. It doesn't matter if you're in Grand Rapids, or you're in Greensburg, Kansas, or you're in Melbourne, Australia, or Flowerdale, or wherever. You have to think that we are in the middle of everywhere. Because if you think you're in the middle of nowhere, your sustainability issue just went out the window. So this offered hope, and that is the key. In December 2007, the City Council passed a resolution. They wanted all municipal buildings to be at the LEED Platinum level. In the midst of that, private enterprise got on board, and our new Arts Center, built by the University of Kansas graduate architectural students, first LEED Platinum building in the state of Kansas, beat out the municipal buildings. And the reason here's another thing that's great about the water tower. You can send the city employee up on top with the camera. And we can, these were just taken the other day, so you're seeing real-time data, 2 years, 2 months out. But this is the Arts Center, and you can see the 3 windmills, you can see the solar panels, and you can see the green roof. And I find it very interesting as we go back and we look at our ancestors and we talk about green roofs. And on the plains and the prairies, green roofs my ancestors lived in for years, and they were called sod houses. So the point of this is our concepts about sustainability are really from our ancestors. They're not this newfangled stuff. It's the new technology that we can implement from what we learned from our ancestors. From when they pioneered, they used the resources they had available. They were good stewards of that, and they lived within their means. We have gotten away from basic concepts and principles in this country because of consumption, because of power and money. And has it improved our quality of life? We found out when you lose everything but your life and your neighbors, your quality of life's just about as good as it was before. You just don't have all the stuff. And a whole lot less credit card bill and utility bill and everything else. So the Arts Center was a real example right off the bat of what could be done, and it also brought beauty to the devastation. One of the first buildings back up, and art displays from all over the nation have been in there in the gallery. In the midst of it, we needed beauty. Now this was taken several months ago when we had a little snow. 32-unit duplexes, built very traditional looking, and you can see them right here from the top of the water tower. Very traditional. Utility bills running, all electric bills running from $50 to $70 a month. First LEED Platinum residential facility in the state of Kansas. So things can look traditional and you can still be at that high energy efficient level. You can also design these buildings as in houses. These were designed in multiples of either 4 or 8 foot, because we know that our sheetrock, our drywall, and our OSB board in 4 and 8 foot pieces. We've educated ourselves as we design and we do architect our homes and our buildings. Think about how supplies come in and what the waste is going to be. You can do a lot of bay windows and you can do a lot of those kind of things that aesthetically really look nice, but they just really aren't good for the environment because they take so many more resources to build. We've also had a company here that has put in a silo home, and it was concrete, reinforced concrete with slip forms, and it's got a concrete roof. A car was dropped on that from a crane about 60 foot, and there isn't a crack or anything in it, and the car just crumpled itself. Very, very modern, what we would consider modern in our area, architecture. But that's a beautiful home. There's an area here on top of the garage for like a patio. It's just tremendous to come to Greensburg and see a living laboratory of new architecture, of new building materials, whether it's SIPS panels or ICF blocks or concrete homes. Just a tremendous variety. We also knew that we needed businesses. You've got to have businesses for a community to survive. So through some generous donations from Sun Chips and from FEMA and USDA, we were able to build a business incubator. There's 12 spots in there that businesses can come in at very reasonable rates for rent to get a cash flow and get their feet underneath them, and then they'll hatch out of that into their own areas down Main Street. City Hall, new City Hall. The brick on City Hall is totally reclaimed from the rubble, inside and out. Almost 75,000 brick were picked up and recycled. So we're doing everything we could in the midst of that rubble to recycle everything. New school, remember, all the businesses, all the schools, all the churches, 95% of the homes were gone. So we're basically rebuilding everything. And you can't have a community without a school. Starting to build that, these were the temporary, and we're still in temporary trailers. We're going to be in 3 years of temporary trailers. But the new school has solar panels, and you saw City Hall a little bit ago have that. New track and football field, field turf instead of grass. A little more expensive up front, but a whole lot more sustainable over duration of time. Won't be having to water the grass or mow it, and carbon emissions from the lawnmower. Just another view of the school. As we talk about sustainability, as we move boldly into the future, it's not going to be about us. It's going to be about these young children, my grandkids and my great-grandkids. Those are the people that are going to change this. They're going to be the generation we have to educate. Our school district has been provided a golden opportunity to implement sustainability into their curriculum. And the story I heard the other day was a mother came to me and said, I got to tell you a story. My third grader came home the other night, and we were in kind of a hurry to get supper fixed. And I opened a can of green beans and just went over and threw it in the trash can. And my third grader went over, got that out, brought it over and said, Mother, this is not the way we do it. She said, that is why we have the recycle bins over here. So that younger generation, through the school system, we have been able to start changing people's thinking. And when we do that, that's where it's going to change with the youth. So we've been given a tremendous opportunity that they're going to be in a living laboratory in a brand new school to see all the passive and active systems that will lead us boldly down the road to the future. Any community can't survive without some kind of health care. Within that health care, if we have to drive 30, 45 miles to a hospital, we got to drive a vehicle, or we take an ambulance, and we burn gas and waste time. So it's critical that we have a facility, another LEED Platinum facility, as the school was, as City Hall is, as the incubator is. Just some of the, and a lot of windows on the south to take advantage of the passive solar in the winter. One of the projects I'm most proud of that we've done in the community, it's not a huge project, but it really is in its own way. We're the first community in the United States that all of our street lights are LED lit. That's only 313, but they all are LED lit. That saves us 40% on energy costs, but when you figure energy costs and maintenance, that's 70% over our old sodium vapor lights. Plus, you don't have the light pollution up. It's directional down on the street. Now, Mayor Hartwell and I were visiting about that yesterday. That technology is coming along and developing rapidly and changing daily in LED lighting, because each community is going to have a different requirement of where that light hits the street, sidewalk, whatever. This lessens our carbon footprint with 313 streetlights by over 40 tons of CO2 a year in when you figure maintenance and energy savings. So my point is, more than anything, we all can make a difference. And when we were first cleaning up the debris, here's a good example of that. You look at the destruction and you go, how are we going to deal with this? And we said to each other, just look down and pick a little area here and clean it up. Then take a step over here, pick another little area and clean it up. And when you got all those people and all those volunteers from all over the nation doing that, in just a matter of a month, we had everything cleaned up. We talk about global warming and we talk about all the clean water, and sometimes we go, how are we going to deal with this? Well, how we deal with it is each one of you, each one of us, just making a difference, doing something. Quit talking about things and do something, because it's the right, responsible, and prudent thing to do. Communications, making sure the public knew what's going on. So the street, our LED community sign was so critical. We also knew in the midst of the main street, and all of our streets are just so tore up from the heavy trucks hauling debris away, and we're going to have to start over. So we tore up Main Street, and we're going with natural plantings, and a streetscape was, as the gentleman said earlier, we're using permeable pavers. There'll be 6 cisterns underneath to collect the water that goes through the permeable pavers, which will be back on the plants. Great new technology. No, my grandparents had a cistern in their yard that they collected stuff. And you think about your families. We collected stuff and we reused it. And you can see, and this is to much chagrin of our community, they're getting tired of having to drive around Main Street over here instead. But it's a process. We're all going to be inconvenienced at some time. But I know it looks like to a lot of people that, well, there hadn't been much progress, but when you get away from it and come back, there's been tremendous progress being made. One building on Main Street that stood, that's very historical, built in 1915, and don't ask me why it still stood and everything else around is rubble. It was a bank, Private person bought it, it's going to put his business downstairs, and he was remodeling upstairs, and that's going to be his home. That's sustainable. It would have been easy to tear it down. Is he having to invest some money in it? Yeah, he is. But it's historical too. It's part of our heritage. Another thing in the community that's highly critical is a grocery store, so we don't have to drive the 30 miles or 45 miles to a grocery store. Not only are we saving the gas, but the sales tax is being collected back in our county now instead of some other county, so that's highly critical. And the other thing, my wife sent me to the grocery store after it opened for just, I don't know, laundry soap or something. And I live 2 blocks from there. It shouldn't have taken me more than 10 minutes. It was about an hour. Because this was the social gathering place in town once it opened. It was the place to be. Again, back to that conversation and those relationships with each other. Our John Deere dealership, the Estes family made a commitment early on that as they were going to rebuild their facility, they wanted it to be at LEED certified as best they could do. We just got a notification last week. I got an email from Mike Estes. This facility is certified LEED Platinum. Very traditional looking steel construction, but there's recycling of their oil and burning it in the winter with radiant solar heat in the floor to heat it. A lot of passive solar natural lighting, and as you look throughout the town, that's one thing that we have went more and more to, including the Dillon store, is natural lighting, utilizing what we've been blessed with. New courthouse. No, it's not. It's the old courthouse. It's still there, but it's renovated, and that's what it looks like now. And right in here, there's 23 geothermal wells, as is City Hall, as is the incubator building, as is private enterprise homes around town. We have the highest concentration of geothermal wells of anywhere in the world. Both closed and loop system. So if you want to know anything about geothermal, come to Greensburg and bring some experts to explain it, because I don't understand. I just know it gets results. No, I understand about geothermal, because number one is our ancestors had root cellars. They understood if they got it under the ground that that would be natural cooling. I remember as a kid, we used windmill to pump water to go across, and we cooled our milk and eggs and butter in the cooling house. And then we pumped it up to the reservoir and let the sun heat it so we had a hot shower at night. That's what our ancestors did. Everything we're trying to do now, heat our water with solar, use geothermal, and utilize the wind. We just have the advanced technologies to do that now. Just some other community buildings that were put back together. The first buildings started back in the community were our churches. So that shows where we're at as a community and what's about faith, family, and friends. And that's what it's about. That's the leadership that we have in the Midwest, and Grand Rapids is in the Midwest. If it's west of the Alleghenies and east of California, it's the Midwest. All different kinds of construction, from ICF to SIPs, and you don't see it from the outside, because you can put whatever covering and make it look however you want, but it's what it's built out of. And the same way with houses. You've got your ICF blocks, SIPs panels. They're just a wide variety of architectural and construction materials. In the midst of our process, we had to have a vision statement. We had to have something that says who we are. And for us, it was just simply, we've been blessed with a tremendous opportunity here to make a difference. To create that strong community, that sense of being part of something that's devoted to family, We've lost some of that in our country because we've been so busy making a living and making a career and accumulating stuff that we've got away from family. And we want to foster business. We want to foster those sustainable businesses. We want to create an environment where green, innovative industry will have a place in a living laboratory to come and be part of the excitement and the vision we have, and to work together for future generations. And my friends, quite frankly, it's about three things to me. It's about being resilient, it's about being adaptive to where we're at, and innovative in what we're doing. And when we're that, then we are sustainable. And in the midst of that, Margaret Mead said that, I've got to get this close to my eyes, it said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. It can't come from Washington, it can't come from Lansing or Topeka, it can't come from City Hall, and it can't come from the county courthouse. It comes from each one of us, because we are the most important thing in this country. We are the country. And it's time that we start being good stewards of those resources that the Lord's blessed us with and move boldly into the future. We have an opportunity right now to be the new pioneers of the 21st century in everything we're doing. We have an opportunity right now, as our forefathers built Grand Rapids and Greensburg to last a lifetime. What are they going to say about us at the end of this 21st century? Are they going to say, boy, they just kept going down that path of voracious consumption? Or are they going to say, they really planned this and they did something about it? At what point in our history is our generation going to step up and make a difference? And forget about politics and forget about all that stuff, just make a difference. We live in the most exciting time in history, in my opinion, because number one, we are at a point where we have disaster everywhere we look. All you got to do is pick up a newspaper. All you got to do is listen to the TV. And whether it's economic, and you're experiencing it here in Michigan more than anywhere, it's a disaster. But we have a great, exciting opportunity here to make a difference, to band together and truly be sustainable in our society. Again, you have to be sustainable emotionally, physically, spiritually, and financially. This has to be financially sustainable too. And you heard that earlier this morning from several of the gentlemen that were up here about financial stability, and that's what it's about, because that's the legacy we're going to leave. Without further ado, I just want to say what an honor and how refreshing it has been to step away from this process and come and be with you today. And I told Corky last night and Norm and all the guys that we had supper with, I was anticipating so much coming up here because I knew that I would see Gary and John and Jill and all the people that I saw a year ago. It was going to feed me to step away and to look at this and say, hey, we really are making progress. And I just wanted to share that with you, that you have been a real blessing to me, all of you today, to be able to get up and share with you from my heart what's important to me, because I know in your heart it's important to you, or you wouldn't have been here today. I just want to say God bless you all and have a great day and a great future. Thank you. John said we had time for a few Q&As here, if we could. Now, I would like to just allude to one thing that Gary said. He talked about taking lemons and making lemonade. Well, that's a very valiant thing to do. But I challenge you more. Go to that next step. Make some lemon meringue pie out of the lemonade. Think outside the box. Don't just squeeze the lemons. Go to the next step. Yes, sir?
Did you have any people that right after your disaster that left and then they decided to come back, or did everyone stay?
We had about half our population just leave. Number one is, we were an older community. And I understand that. If I'm an older person, I don't have the time and the energy to rebuild. I can go to a neighboring town and I can buy a house at 50 cents on the dollar of what it's going to cost to rebuild new construction that already has grass and trees. I don't fault them for that. And a lot of our senior citizens moved to be closer to family. But I showed you those 32-unit duplexes. We're having that older generation move back now because it's their home. They went to other communities and wasn't home. And they're moving back, even though it isn't their same house. It's their community, it's their home. So we're seeing them come back. School last fall had 60 more kids than they did students than the year before. And of those 60, almost half of those have never attended school in our district. We're having young families move. We need jobs and employment, as you do here in Michigan. It's all over the country. But those jobs and employment are bringing people because of quality of life, the young people. They see a community that everything's new. They're either starting a family or getting ready or already have a young family. Where else would you want them to go to school than in a brand new state-of-the-art facility that will implement all the things this younger generation, they know about this stuff because they've seen how we've destroyed some of the things and they want to change it. They want to be part of something new, exciting. They want quality of life and they want to get back to their roots and they want to be a sense of community. Now you can have that sense of community whether you're in Grand Rapids or whether you're in Greensburg, Kansas. You have to choose to be that community. But yes, we are growing. Yes?
How many people are in Greensburg before, after?
Before we had about 1,500 people. We were as high as over 2,000 not too many years ago. But remember, our biggest export hasn't been our cattle or our wheat or our corn or soybeans. Our biggest export's been our youth. They went off and got a good education and they went to the city and got a job because we didn't have jobs to offer them. You go to where the employment is. So our population got older and it got smaller in numbers. We're at about 850 right now coming back, estimate 850, 900. So people are coming back, we're building, we're growing. I had a gentleman the other day ask me, when will you be done with the process? And I said, never. Because when you're done, you're done. You're just done. And then you know what happens? You start going the other way. And we've been that way. We know how it goes the other way. That didn't get us anywhere. So we need to just keep moving on. And that's true with all of us. It's not just about us. It's about what we can do as a country and as a planet. And I'm seeing it all over the world that people really are now to the point where it's past cocktail talk and past just conversation. It's time that we do something. And that is the thing that I see the most, and that's why people are coming back, ma'am. It's because they see something's been done. Yes, we had a disaster, and yes, we had decided to build back green and sustainable and make a difference, but it's more than that to me right now. It's about hope, because when civilizations lose hope, they perish. We got to keep uplifting each other and keep offering hope, and we got to keep offering good news to each other. We can't keep perpetuating negativity. And when it's there, though, let's don't discount that. But we can still continue to uplift each other and offer hope to each other. I get started sometimes on that, and I go through this, but this is what I really like is the interaction, because that's, again, about community, and it's about conversation. Anyone else? I'll be around all day. If you think of something, please come up and visit with me. I'm no expert. Guys like Corky and Norman and everyone here, you're all experts. I'm just another pretty face up here. No. Thank you.
We'll take a 15-minute break back in here at 10.